Okay, what's happening? So we're going to do this lab exercise 5, which is about Excel. Hooray. All right, let me start sharing the screen. Let me share it all. All right, the whole screen. Look at that. Okay, I don't know why it's trying to do this. That's fine. Okay, great. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm screen sharing. Okay. So what we're going to do this first lab exercise is just introduce some of the basics. Excel Fundamentals Part 1. So first of all, we got to create a file. So you can pick your thing, you can pick blank workbook, ta-da, and then we have this page. So it's a grid of what are called cells. So we have rows going from left to right. We have columns going from top to bottom, and each intersection of a column and a row is called a cell. All right, so let's go ahead and start doing this. Now, any cell or we'll start really the basics. Every Excel file is called a workbook, and workbook contains a bunch of worksheets. So you can add on new sheets down there. Each sheet is like a page. Okay. So we're going to start off on this first sheet, sheet 1 of our file. And the first thing we're going to do is enter some data into cells. So in Excel, cells can hold numbers. You can just put, numbers to do some math. You can put in text, like column labels. You can put in mathematical formulas, for example, to express that one cell should hold the sum of a bunch of other cells. And of course, you can do all sorts of other functions, complicated things like statistics or present value or future value things for those of you that know about that from finance, all kinds of functions built into Excel. All right, but we're going to start with some really basic stuff today, so no worries. So first of all, to change the data in a cell, you need to select it. All right, so when you open a new workbook, it's going to start off with this top left cell, A1 selected, but you can click in any other cell and it'll appear highlighted. You can also grab and click. For example, right now I'm clicking in C5 here, holding down the left mouse button. I can just move around and arbitrarily select, a range of cells, including C5. Okay. So our first action, all right, is to select the cell range A1 through G8. That's all we got to do. So we go to our workbook here. Whoop, this one. A1 to G8. So we click on A1. We can click and drag the cursor over to G1 and then bring it down to G8. And we've selected this entire range, A1 down here to G8. Okay. Now, if you're interested in these things, if you're somebody that's comfortable using the keyboard, there's a lot of basic keyboard shortcuts that are the same as for other Microsoft and a lot of other, web apps these days. So Control X for cut, Control C for copy, Control V for paste, Control Z for undo, Control Y for redo. All right. So, for example, can enter the text ABC in C5, press Enter. All right. So back to Excel. C5, click there, enter the text A, B, C. Click Enter. Go down to the next row. Okay. So then we can do Control B and Control I to change the text out to bold and italics. You know what? I'm going to split these two because it's just easier this way. So I don't have to keep flipping back and forth between screens. Okay, that's great. All right, so in C5, you can do Control B to make the text appear bold, Control I to make it italic. So you can do some easy style changes there. Okay, next thing, select cell C5. Well, it's still there, so we're going to leave that. So then we're going to do Control C. Once you select Control C, that's for copy. You'll see the border of the cell has this moving border around it. Now we can click on another cell and paste the contents there. Okay, so we can select cell E7. So E7 and press Control V. And boom, we've made a copy of that same cell contents. Okay. Now, if you decide you didn't want to copy that, you just want to get out of that, just click the escape key and you'll see this border vanish. Ta-da. Okay. So the next thing, action 4, select cell E7. Okay. So we've got that. Now we're going to do Control X. Once again, the border starts moving. So here we're going to cut this cell content and paste it somewhere else. So we're going to select D2 for, just for demo purposes, and then Control V to paste it. All right, so copy creates a duplicate of whatever's in the original cell. Cut moves it around. Last one, action 5 here, press Control A. That selects the whole worksheet. Okay, boom. Do that, hit delete. We've cleared everything. Okay. Now, again, the nice thing about these keyboard shortcuts, you can always, right click on here and get to thing like cut and copy. And some people like that, but you can be faster if you're doing these basic shortcuts with your left hand while you're doing mouse stuff with your right hand. So whatever, but some people are more comfortable doing everything with the mouse, and fine, whatever. Okay. Now, switching selections. If you want to change a cell, right, again, you can do the mouse, but there are other keyboard shortcuts. So the first one is the arrow keys, all right? So down between the regular keyboard and the numeric keypad, there are those 4 arrow keys, right? So you can use them to move around the cells, and sometimes that can be easier, okay? Other things you can do, tab and shift. So you can do tab to move stuff forward, or shift tab to move it backward, right? And that's an easy way. Now, generally, when you've tapped on a bunch of tabs and you hit enter, that brings you to the start of the next row, just like a carriage return on an old-timey typewriter, if you've ever used one of those, excuse me. All right, so we're gonna enter some cell contents here. Okay, we're gonna fill out this like we have a set of data here. And this is all just from the bottom of the page for action 6. Just to get a little handle, a little practice on moving things through. So here, Smith, Jack. Oh yeah, we didn't change that format. And, oh, sorry, keep the capitals. I'm gonna just select all those to not be bold and italics anymore. Okay. Okay, so you should look like this. There's a picture down at the bottom of the page. That's fine. Now, if you want to select the range A1 to D5, right, this whole little table we just created, so since the area is small originally, doing it with the mouse is no big deal. But imagine the range was much, much larger with thousands and thousands of rows and columns, right? Then using the mouse would kind of be a pain because you'd have to, you'll see in a later file that it's not that easy to do. Fortunately, we can do some stuff with the arrow keys. Okay, so action 7, select cell A2. Okay, then holding down the shift and the control keys, press the down arrow key. Ta-da! And then you select down to the bottom of the column. If you also keep the shift and control key down and press the right arrow key, boom, you select all that other stuff. And that works really well for dealing with giant batches of data. Okay, now one of the things you'll see if there are gaps in the data, it's going to require some extra keystrokes to select everything. So it's designed to work for a batch of data that's all, in continuous cells, a contiguous group of cells without any breaks in between them. All right. Okay, so again, so a little demo of this A7, we're going to enter some numbers like they say here. Okay, now if we click on A2 once again, and we're trying to use Control Shift and the down arrow to select these, all right, we have to do a separate click every time there's a new row or there's a gap. All right, so inserting and deleting columns and rows, sometimes you want to do that. You just want to insert a row or a column without messing up everything else. So one way to do that is to right click on the column. For example, you can do insert, boom, or you can do it on a row and again, insert like that. So that's one way to do it. Or if you like, you can just click on the letter for a column and then do Alt-I and then C for column. Or same thing for a row, select on the row and do Alt-I and then R for a new row. Okay, And there's a couple other things listed in there. Uh, Next thing, autofill. So autofill is a very important Excel technique, allows you to select large groups of cells and populate them with an existing formula. Okay, so we're going to do a new worksheet. So down here, we've already did one. If you wanted to create a totally new one, press the plus button. We're going to make a new worksheet. Okay, and suppose you need to fill cells A2 to A501 with a whole bunch of numbers from 1 to 500. Now, of course, you could do this by typing in all the numbers one at a time, but that'd be a really long time, right? So the better way, you could just do a 1 and 2 in the first two uh, cells there, and then drag it down. So you'll see when you hover, select the two cells, right? Select A2 and A3, and you'll see down at the bottom, there's a little square here that says, hey, maybe you want to do something with this. Well, when you hover over it with the cursor, it'll turn to a narrow black cross, and that allows you to do what's called autofill. So with autofill, we're going to copy that same pattern of numbers to a new batch of cells. So what Excel understands from here is that we're adding 1 to each cell. So the next one we put down, we do a click and drag, will be 3, and then 4, and then 5. And I could let it go. You can see there's a number right next to the cursor inside a little bubble there that shows what it's putting down. And I'm just going to go ahead and go all the way down to 500. Zzz, and get there. And boom. And it autofills. So now we have that whole stretch of numbers. Isn't that nice? Okay. Now autofill works really well if you're adding a constant value to each cell, right? So if you want to count by ones or count by twos, that's great, right? We try that again. I'm going to go all the way up back to B2. If you want to do it by 2 and 4, it'll assume, yeah, okay, you're counting by twos. Great, we can do that. So you see 6, 8, 10, you see the bubbles, and it counts by twos. But we'll see. We'll see. Sometimes other series are a little bit harder. We'll see if Excel has ever been updated to exponentiation. I haven't tried this in a while. So 2, 4, 8, let's see. Maybe it's smart. Nope. Now it's doing some weird stuff. See, now it calculated a new pattern that wasn't really there. All right, so every one of them, it's basically adding 3 onto each one. It's kind of, and it starts off with 8 divided by 3 is the first jump. It's kind of a mess. That's not what we wanted. So having every new cell double, you'd need to do formulas for that. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, what else do we have here? We have numbers 3, 6, and 4. All right, so again, if you do something where Excel can't figure out what pattern you're trying to do, let's see what happens. We do autofill on that. Whoop. And yeah, it does some weird stuff. It doesn't know what we're doing here. It's trying to guess, but it just adds on 0.5 to everything. It's goofy. Anyway, so yeah, autofill is useful. It's great for simple addition, but for a lot of other things, it's not going to work that well. Okay, but neat thing, you can do stuff besides simple numbers. There's a lot of different patterns of dates or times. For example, you could do Q1, Q1 2018, Q2 2018, so there's a lot of these that are built into, yeah, see, it would work better if we had all 4 quarters. So we'll do that. Q3 2018 and Q4 2018. And now when we do this, we use autofill once again, you can see it actually makes a sensible pattern, right? So it does the 4 quarters for every year. All right. So yeah, there's a lot of different stuff. You can do the same thing with months. You can do like January, February, whatever. For example, if I do January, February, okay, Excel is smart enough to recognize that those are months, and it'll put March, April, June, July. So it can figure out that series, because the way that the months are encoded in Excel is basically, numbers increasing by 1. So Excel can grab onto that pattern pretty well. All right. And that's it. That's the walkthrough. You could try doing all this stuff exactly with the, exact cells that are here. Well, this is just a quick demo of some basic Excel stuff. So what did we learn? We learned about cells, we learned about rows, we learned about columns, we learned about creating new worksheets, and we learned about autofill and some keyboard techniques for navigating around, right? And selecting groups of data, which you can select with your mouse, or you can select it using the keyboard like I'm doing now with those arrow keys, boom. All right. All right, hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.